Welcome to This Explainer. So, have you ever bought something and walked away feeling like, wow, I just got an absolute steal? Or maybe the exact opposite, you paid for something and felt completely ripped off. Today, we're diving into the hidden economic forces that actually dictate the prices we pay every single day. We're going to figure out exactly who is winning when money changes hands. Let's kick things off with a real-world scenario that's going to feel painfully familiar if you've ever tried to book travel online. Imagine a return ticket from Manchester to Islamabad with Pakistan International Airlines, or PIA. Back in September, that cost $612. But if you wanted to take that exact same journey on the exact same route in October, suddenly you're paying $837. Why in the world do identical flights have these wildly fluctuating prices just depending on the month you travel?
Well, it gets even more fascinating when you compare it to the competition. So PIA has this massive price swing from $612 up to $837, but contrast that with Air Blue. They're a low-cost private airline flying from Islamabad to Karachi, and they kept a completely fixed price of $240 for almost every single flight until the end of that year. Literally no variation. This right here introduces the central mystery for this explainer. Why does one airline bounce its prices all over the place, while another stays perfectly still? And more importantly, when they play these pricing games, who actually gains? Is it you, the passenger, or is it the airline?
To solve this mystery, we really need to understand our first secret mechanic. It's called consumer surplus. Basically, this is the difference between what you, the consumer, are totally willing to pay for something and the actual market price you end up paying. Think about it. Some people get a massive amount of satisfaction out of a specific product. Imagine a die-hard sports fan who's just desperate to see a World Cup cricket match or someone dying to see their absolute favorite singer in concert. They might be willing to pay practically any price for that ticket. But in most markets, the price is exactly the same for everyone. So if that sports fan was willing to drop $1,000, but the ticket is set at $200, they just scored a massive, invisible win. And the cool thing is, you can actually visualize this invisible win. Since the market price is lower than what the really eager buyers at the top of the demand curve are willing to pay, there is a specific area, a triangle trapped between the two, that represents this consumer surplus. It's literally the physical representation of your unseen savings and satisfaction. Everyone sitting on that upper portion of the curve was perfectly willing to pay more, but they didn't have to. Now, what happens when a business throws a special offer and drops the price? Well, that surplus triangle expands outward and downward, and two pretty amazing things happen when they do this. First, the existing buyers, the ones who are already going to buy it at the higher price, now get an even better deal. Their personal surplus just grew. And second, the people who previously thought it was way too expensive, they finally jump in and buy it. So a lower price means more buyers, plus a nice little bonus for the original buyers. But hey, every transaction has two sides, right? Let's flip the perspective entirely from the consumer over to the airline. This brings us to our second secret mechanic, producer surplus. Just like you have a maximum price you're willing to pay, producers have a rock-bottom minimum price they are willing to accept to sell their product. Producer surplus is simply the extra cash they make above that absolute minimum.
Let's bring it back to our airline example. Let's say the absolute baseline cost for an airline to fly you from Manchester to Islamabad, to cover the fuel, the staff maintaining the plane, is $588. If the ticket drops below that, they won't even fly the plane. But if the market price is sitting way up at $837 because desperate, late bookers or urgent business travelers are perfectly willing to pay it, well, all that space between their baseline cost and the actual market price is pure producer surplus. It's just extra revenue the airline gets to pocket straight away.
So you might be wondering, okay, why don't airlines just raise prices to infinity and rake in all that producer surplus? Well, that brings us to the rules of the game, which are governed by something called elasticity. Elastic demand essentially means high price sensitivity. Think about luxury goods. If a designer handbag suddenly gets way too expensive, you just don't buy it. Your demand stretches and breaks easily, it's elastic. On the flip side, inelastic demand means low sensitivity. Think about things you literally have to buy, like medication or petrol for your car. Even if the price completely skyrockets, you still have to buy it. Your demand is rigid, it's inelastic.
When we put these two side by side, inelastic demand like medicine versus elastic demand like luxury goods, a really fascinating dynamic emerges. Even if you raise the price by the exact same amount in both markets, the loss of consumer surplus is absolutely massive for the elastic good. Why? Because buyers just walk away. But for the inelastic good, that loss area is so much smaller. This perfectly proves exactly why businesses selling essential inelastic goods can bump up their prices without losing many customers, while luxury brands, they have to be incredibly careful.
And guess what? This whole concept works on the supply side too. If supply is elastic, it just means producers can easily and quickly bump up their output to meet demand. When supply is elastic, a rise in the market price gives producers a massive, sprawling boost in producer surplus. Since they're already set up to pump out a lot of product at lower prices, any jump in the market price instantly turns into a huge windfall of extra revenue for them.
So, the really crucial point here is what happens when we put these two warring forces together. The consumer trying to score a deal, and the producer trying to maximize their revenue. When they meet, they find an equilibrium. If you combine both of their surpluses together, that represents the net benefit to society. It's proof that when trade happens, both the buyer and the seller are actually walking away with invisible value.
Okay, to really drive home just how powerful these invisible forces are, I want you to consider this staggering number. $30.9 billion. And no, that's not a yearly revenue figure. That is the amount of money Alibaba generated in a single 24-hour period during the 2018 Singles' Day shopping event in China. They literally processed over 1 billion orders in just one day.
How on earth does a single event generate that much cash? Well, by masterfully manipulating the very forces we've been talking about. Events like Singles' Day or Black Friday are specifically designed to play with elasticity on a massive global scale. By offering these huge price promotions, they instantly expand the consumer surplus, just like we saw earlier. This drags in millions of new buyers who were previously just sitting on the sidelines. But to capture all of that, the producers must have highly elastic supply. They have to scale up intensely to meet that sudden limited time demand. The sheer volume of sales boosts the total producer surplus astronomically, even if they're making a slightly lower profit margin on each individual item.
Which brings us to a final, kind of provocative question to wrap up this explainer. When you see dynamic pricing on a flight to Islamabad, or a massive flash sale pop up on Singles' Day, what's really happening behind the scenes? Are producers just getting incredibly good at figuring out exactly how much you're willing to pay? Are they using complex pricing algorithms and manufactured shopping holidays to basically siphon off your consumer surplus and turn it into their own producer surplus? The next time you see a price tag change or a massive sale drop, I want you to picture those overlapping forces. Just remember that the price you pay is really only the surface level. Underneath it all, there's a constant tug of war for surplus happening every single time you swipe your card. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.